of the off-leash dog park, 5:30, June 22nd, in the caucus room in City Hall. The committee consists of Councilman Jack Knapp and Councilman Peter Nero, and myself, Mary Teicholz, is the chair. We have our petitioner with us, Councilman Joe Cavo. We have Robin Edwards from Corporation Counsel, Director of Public Works Antonio Iadarola, Director of Parks and Rec Nick Kaplanis, Director of Planning Dennis Alpern, and Assistant Finance Director Dan Garrick, and members of the public. So I guess we'll begin by asking the petitioner what he has to offer today. It's a continuation of another meeting from March 8th. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Peter?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to make an amendment to the minutes. In here it is stated in the, I'm going to call it the first big paragraph. Mr. Nero stated that he would support a dog park and thought they should move forward with finding space. While I may be jumping up and down and saying, yeah, let's do that tonight, my recollection was at that meeting, after Mr. Cavo made his presentation, it was so great, I just said we should move forward with investigating the possibility of having a dog park or something to those words. While I don't remember the exact words, the implication of what I was saying had to do with let's move forward and see if this is feasible, as opposed to saying let's do it. So that was the only clarification I would like to make, if that's okay.
Councilman Nero, we will definitely, we have spoken to our clerk, and she said they will go back, check the minutes, and that correction will be made to the minutes.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. Now, Councilman Cavo.
Thank you, Councilman Teicholz. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I truly appreciate the interest, and I will tell you that since this has started, there's been a very positive influence. People have come up to me multiple times now whenever I'm in a public setting and they ask me, how's the dog park going? And I said that we're still in the very early planning stages of it, but hopefully it's going well. At the last meeting, as you remember, we had talked about looking at potential sites. Mr. Kaplanis and myself and Mr. Iadarola have looked at several sites through the city, and one particular site keeps coming back to mind, and I'm going to let Mr. Iadarola talk about that more from an engineering standpoint. And that is the back lot of Highland Avenue Park. And in discussion with Mr. Kaplanis, that back part of that park really isn't being utilized to its full potential. It has a lot of amenities that are available to it. It has running water, city running water there, and the grade and everything seems to work really well. And it has the ability to have two separate parks, a small dog park and a large dog park, with what I feel is an adequate area in size for both the large dogs and the small dogs. And at this point, I'd like to just turn it over to Mr. Iadarola. Mr. Iadarola had a draftsman, an engineer, go out and draft the property, and he has a drawing for you. I have a drawing he gave me as well, and it has a potential fence line, and I believe Mr. Iadarola also required some prices for fencing. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. So, Mr. Iadarola?
Before you start, I would just like to acknowledge that Councilman Benchines is here ex officio. I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem. First of all, I just want to excuse my attire. I was off today, but I came in for this very important meeting.
Thank you, Antonio. Good at that.
I thought I was going to have some time to change, but that did not work out for me. We were fortunate to actually have a very detailed survey of this property, which helped us quickly put a little map together for us to look at. The opportunities available here is that we have running water, and I could, yeah, you could. I'm going to just roll this backwards so we're not fighting the curl on it. The existing park actually has water, so it would not be an issue to be able to run a service line out to the entranceway of the park. or I should say the entranceway to the new fenced-in area for the park. And it actually works very well area-wise to create a large area for the bigger dogs, and then a smaller area for the smaller dogs. And with Joe's help, there's actually a little bit of science that goes with these parks and how you lay them out, the transitioning area, the your entryway and things like that. So in talking to Joe, we were able to come up with an entranceway which is then has another gate that lets you into the large dog park and the small dog park. And I guess that's where you put your leash on and things like that.
That's where you take the leash off.
It's a secured area. That works out very nice because it falls in within two very large maple trees. So it actually aesthetically looks really nice. The other nice thing about it is we do have some parking already available to us, which is nice. And down the road, if this thing really takes off, there is an opportunity to expand this into the area in the back. So if we really get a lot of interest, we can do that. The topography couldn't be any better. It's actually very, very gentle topography. This is a very level area, and we came up with the large area is about 61,000 square feet, which is let's see, that's just over an acre. Yeah, and then the other one's about 8,000 square feet. It's we took a look at it. There is a small playground area here with kids, so we were very sensitive to make sure that we have plenty of distance between that playground area and the fence. We didn't want any small kids going in there sticking their hand in the fence. And we may end up putting what they call privacy slots in the actual chain link fence, which would really prevent the kids from doing something. So it works. Out of all the areas that we looked at, this one really was the easiest to get up and running. It had the water. It has the parking. It is somewhat centralized. We just thought it was a good fit. And the other nice part about it is I actually had a map available to us. So this was a half-hour exercise to be able to pull this together for you guys for tonight's meeting. Having said that, based on the perimeter fencing requirements, going with a 5-foot black vinyl coated, which is nice. It's a nice looking fence. It just doesn't look like it's not a silver chain link fence. The price is somewhere around $26,000. There might be another $3,000 or $4,000 associated with that because there is existing fencing here that's all down and should probably be removed. But that could be a couple $1,000s here or there. So I think, Jordan, I think that's about it.
If I could just chime in for just a second. One of the things that I spoke about at the first meeting was the transition area. And if you look on the map, there's a blown-up area here on the side. One of the pitfalls that I've seen at dog parks that I visited is that the transition areas, because of space, aren't large enough to properly transition dogs. Dogs on leashes seem to have problems with other dogs on leashes. And you need an area large enough so that when you walk in with a dog on a leash, you can stay separated from another dog by a fair distance. And Antonio did a great job and made that transition area 15 feet by 30 feet, which is a huge area. In Ridgefields Park, their transition area is about 5 feet by 5 feet. And if somebody's coming out of the park and someone's going into the park and the two dogs meet in that 5 square foot area, there's a battle sometimes that happens in there, and it's just the nature of what dogs do when they're on leashes. And I'm not a vet, I couldn't explain why, but it's just something about them on leashes. So the transition area is really nice. people will be way far enough away from each other so that when someone comes in with a dog while someone's coming out, they can leash up and take the leash off and transition without having, the dogs even close to each other in proximity. So that's one of the real benefits of that area. The other thing that Antonio touched on is that if this thing were to need to grow, there's a heavily wooded area back here. It's almost, again, the same size as this area, right, Antonio? That, with, a lot of tree work, could be converted over into, expanding this if the need were to arise and it were to happen, that it got that much activity, which I really, truly believe this will have a lot of activity when it gets up and running. So, but I think it's a great start. And this is the first time I've heard of fence pricing, and I'm very happy about that. I think it's a tremendous price, so I'm very happy about that. And that's about it. I think that, we have to figure out what our next step is in this. I think it probably has to go to planning for a report. It probably has to go to the Park and Rec Commission for a report. That's why I'm going to ask Dennis and Robin, their thoughts on that.
I suppose we ought to get a site plan, but it's not a big deal. All we're looking at is fencing. The park is in. I just had a question, why the space for the small dogs is so small?
Because they're small.
Because they're small dogs. Thank you.
I thought that was a trick question. I'm glad you answered it.
Who decides when this dog is small, who goes where?
There's a
Is that
little
an
sign
owner?
that says if you're this tall, you can't go
Like
in.
it's Disney World?
Well, I'm pretty sure
The owners.
Yeah, they know.
Usually, they know. They're not going to walk in with a Yorkshire Terrier and put it in the big dog park with, a Shepherd or a Rottweiler or something like that. So.
Can this be
Or does it have to be spelled out?
Yeah,
in this direction?
yeah, because, yeah.
That just seems
Robin, do you have something you would like to add?
I know Dennis is a simple site plan. I think just, comments on a site plan. There's no legal requirement that it be referred to any particular departments before it goes back to the council. If you feel that you want input from specific people, you certainly can ask for that. You could certainly ask for that. I know you wanted to have, I don't know if anyone has any questions. Dan very nicely came to
Yep. Well, I'm trying to get all the department people. And
because
then,
I know there were some questions last time about the whole liability aspect. And I had said really last time that it's like any other type of activity that the city enters into. Of course, there's risks involved with it. There's risks involved with everything, and that's why we have insurance. And anticipating that beforehand, Dan and I had communicated even prior to the first meeting, and he contacted our insurance carrier, and he can elaborate more on that if need be. But it's like anything the city engages in. There's a risk associated with it. I can tell you there's no cases in Connecticut on dog parks per se and liabilities for dog parks. I did look into that. We would, as Dennis mentioned in his report, we would amend our ordinances to, if the council decides to go ahead and go forward with this project. We do have section 12.3 of our ordinances that would need to be amended, so our office could take care of that as well. I think that's it for now, unless anyone has any specific questions.
And if you want to shoot a copy to us for preliminary look.
pardon me, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
If you want to shoot a copy to us for a preliminary look, we'd be more than happy to. Although I don't foresee a problem. Just to be sure.
I guess, funding, I guess is your next question that you have.
Well, actually, I did have one question about, I know our ordinance, but there's the new state law with the dogs off of their leashes. Is there an exemption for off-leash dog parks in statute?
I don't think there is specifically. There is a new legislation actually, which I have with me about municipal liability and parks in general, and dog parks are not included in that legislation, but we would.
Yeah, but I was specifically the dog. There was new legislation on dogs because of the incident in the dog being off the leash in Ridgefield, and there was a state statute put into effect about dogs who are off their leashes. I just wanted to, I guess that's my question, if there's an exemption, just so we don't get muddied.
I'm sorry, I could
It's okay.
specifically
It's
look
okay.
at that for you. I don't have that statute
Okay.
with me
It
tonight,
just
but I'm
popped into my
happy
head.
to look at that for you. Of
Okay,
course.
all right. Councilman Cavan.
Just, I think out of due respect for the Park and Rec Commission, I think we should certainly run this by the commission and ask them to at least review it in a meeting and give a recommendation. I think that would just be proper, since we do have a Park and Rec Commission and it is going to be a change of use to a city park. So I'm throwing that out there. I just think that probably should happen. And that would require council action to do that. So at some point, we'd have to make a recommendation.
Yes.
That the council makes a recommendation to the park commission for a report, as long as, and as well as a planning report, or it'd probably be, you know, unless Dennis thinks it's not warranted, that's fine.
Have you thought about any neighborhood opposition?
Thought about that. I actually gave some thought to that. The park's hours would be, it would close at sundown, so it would be closed. In the wintertime, it would be down at 5 o'clock, and in the summertime, whatever sundown is, 7:30, 8 o'clock, whatever it is. So, we looked at the houses that are up here, and they seem to be fairly far enough away, and there's also a fairly good-sized ravine that runs up a bank up to their street. So I think it should be, I don't know if it's going to be an issue. And as far as on Highland Avenue on that side, the houses are way far away from it. There's the distance of the first part of the park. These two houses, would border the closest to it. And then the houses over here on Sleepy Hollow are very far away from it. So it's these homes and these two homes primarily, and I don't know. I guess we'd have to see when it goes up the flagpole what comes back. And but in something that Robin had said about there's no cases currently in Connecticut. And back when I was doing some research for the first ad hoc, there's over 80 dog parks, 80 established dog parks in Connecticut, and they've been up and running and functioning. So I think that is a good sign. If there's that many dog parks running and there hasn't been any case history on that, that's good. I think it's going to be very important to make the rules very clear. And I had hoped this past week to go and take pictures of the rules for Southbury and for Ridgefield and now New Fairfield, but I didn't have a chance to do it. But I'll hopefully have that by our next meeting.
I actually have a list of rules
Okay.
that have taken off of various things also. Mr. Garrett, would you like to have some input on the liability questions, please?
Sure.
Wait, you're late.
We ran this by, by our insurance carrier, and they had some guidance on it, some information that they pulled together. And basically what they said is there's general immunity for municipality. The biggest issue we have to enforce the rules and regulations. So obviously posting the rules and regulations and making sure we follow up on any issues there. And then obviously supervision is key, just like the playground that's next to it. Supervision is key for the users of the playground next door. There's a lot of considerations that have to be planned for, and the plans that I've seen, they've taken most of those considerations, in mind as they plan that. Tony mentioned the privacy.
The park right now has a gated entrance that is locked, and it's locked or unlocked only in the summertime when the spray park is open. Based on this, I would imagine that we're going to remove that and just leave it open all the time, which isn't an issue, but it's a change in how we do things currently. Is there enough parking in that area right now to support the additional traffic, because it gets pretty crowded there in the summertime for the use of the playground and the spray park. So that, I think, is something that needs to be taken into consideration as well, because we may have to add some additional parking. Because the problem after that would be people would be parking in the street, which is not an ideal situation based on the size, the width of the road. If you park in the road, then that narrows it down where traffic would be an issue. So we may want to look at that. I had a couple other things, but that's all I can think of.
Mr. Alpern, do you know if there's an, I mean, this would be kind of your thing with the parking.
Dog parks?
No, the parking, the car parking.
You have 10 spaces there.
Maybe we get the dogs to carpool.
We don't, I would say 1 space per
For 10
dog,
dogs? You just said,
based on whether they drive or not. If they have a bona fide Connecticut license. I don't, we don't have anything. Although there's space there to expand. You can actually double the size of that parking. So you have 20 spaces. But that's probably, well,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. We'll go up again.
To the dog park.
Councilman Knapp has a question.
Kind of a neighborhood, kind of a we call it pocket park. There are people that will gather there on the weekends and have little picnics, and they'll go out and run around in that area. It's not an area where I will assign or permit official use for any one group to go there on a regular basis to have an organized activity. I have not done so.
So as far as disrupting the...
It doesn't disrupt the normal operations for the rec department in assignment of field space for practice or games. We don't have anything organized like that there.
Councilman Chianese has been very patient.
No, it's okay. To the chair, I think on paper it does look like a perfect spot, but as you look and the whole surrounding neighborhood, I think the impact that this will have on the neighborhood is going to be could be severe, because you got a pocket park that just impacts the surrounding neighborhoods. Now you're going to open it up to the entire city, so you're going to get vehicles who normally will never come here. So you can have exposed risks that never were before regarding the child safety laws, regarding I think the signs where child predators can't go in this park. I guess that would apply to the dog park as well.
well, that's currently part of this park right now.
Right, but they would have, again, this park would also be part of that, correct?
It is part of it now.
Right.
If
So
you're-
this would be part of it, will be extended to it.
Right, if you're convicted and you think you're going to walk your dog there or go to a spray park, you can.
Right. Okay, but as you look at it, I think the neighbors here will have, I think we need to at least ask them, a survey to them, to get their opinion to say, do you have an issue regarding having this park here? Probably won't, but I think we need to know that before you order fencing, before anything, or we have a public hearing to allow them to at least have a say. Because that does have an impact, because before this was their private park. Just like Nick said, this is where they had picnics on weekends. Now they got to deal with dogs barking. On a Sunday when they're trying to have a party in their house, now they got dogs barking. And whether it's in the morning or late at night, we don't know. We don't know what the use, but they have to deal with that now. But I think we need to at least hear from them.
On the people gathering there, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the neighborhood gathering there for a picnic. Anyone, if you wanted to have a family picnic and someone was to call the office and, well, where can I do it? I might suggest to you, well, you can go to Highland Avenue, because I know that people have done that in the past. But I'm not going to say that it's just the Highland Avenue people that are,
But
utilizing.
usually a pocket park is usually for the neighborhood itself, like the Blindbrook Park, that's
Yeah.
really for that area. We don't expect people from
Yeah.
the west side to go there for the park. It's usually designed for the neighborhood, which is what this park was designed for. And now you're expanding it for city use. Again, parking could be an issue, traffic could be an issue, noise could be an issue with dogs barking, because no one likes dogs barking at 6 o'clock at night when you're trying to eat dinner. I don't think anybody likes that. I think you would have to at least address that issue to the neighbors, because it's not many. We're talking maybe 5 people, 5 neighbors, who may not have an issue with it, but I think we need to at least address it. But overall, it looks like a perfect spot for it, just by its location itself. But I think we would have to at least reach out to them and say, listen, come to the next ad hoc meeting.
Councilman Don Taylor is here. It's 6 o'clock.
Apologize for being late.
Councilman Nero.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just
Second,
just a couple of questions, and if it's okay, we'll all into your area if you could just respond to that. Mr. Iadarola mentioned that we could put in privacy fence slats, which I think anything, we mentioned that we could do that, we would do that. I'm suggesting that we definitely do it where anything abuts where the playground is. It's not obvious to me if this part of the fence is also accessible for someone that say come from here and come over to the fence. But people also have to use some good judgment as well, as people may say general things like as long as you're policing it, or as long as you're protecting it to some level. I'm not asking Robin for you to speak to that at this particular, unless you want to offer something in that regard.
Well, that's why I communicated
Yep.
with Dan, and that's
Okay.
why he communicated with our insurance carrier,
Okay.
because we wouldn't just presume to know that. And
Right.
information that Dan obtained from our carrier, some general information,
Okay.
talked about
Okay.
supervision. As Dan mentioned, that's very important. And part of supervision is enforcement of the rules, which is why Joe spoke with the police chief about who will be looking at this. Will we have any city supervision? It's important that the dog warden go there and take a look at it. And, I'm sure someone can't be there all the time, but these are the kind of things that you do want to look at. Is
Okay.
the area suitable? Is it maintained? Are there rules up there? Do they notify people you're there at your own risk? Is the park located in a facility that minimizes the potential for any sort of attendant risks? These are all the things that everyone seems to be very carefully trying to look at and minimize to the extent it's possible, but you can never minimize away every risk as much as we lawyer types might like to try to. We just can't do it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Adam.
Just procedurally, and we talked about the public, Mr. Cheney's talked about the public voicing their opinion. Procedurally, we're going to do ordinance change anyhow on this, correct? Did I hear that? Probably would have to do
Would
that.
like to, and then second clause, I think we should
Right,
look
we
at
need to amend
one
that.
once the group moves
And
forward.
so,
yes.
all this, let's assume we all agree that this is our location, we want to move forward with this. Procedurally, our next step would be to get that ordinance change done, at which point in time, the public would have their opportunity in a public hearing to come out and voice their yays and nays to us at the same time. I'm just trying to think of where we're going to be
Right.
next. So, do you, well, that was the other thing. Does zoning need to do a zoning change or an amendment to any park zones?
No, but if you're going to change the ordinance, make sure that that ordinance change is separate from this site-specific proposal. So that it would apply to the park. It's not tied to this. And otherwise, you're going to get into a debate about this project, when in fact what you're doing is changing the ordinance that would apply throughout the city.
In favor of line of spot zoning, which used to be called.
Spot ordinance.
His favorite thing.
Jackie can't be spot zoning, Jackie can't be talking. Okay, all right, so that's basically where I'm at. The project looks like a beautiful spot, so. I'm done.
Mr. Cannon.
Ms. Legends, if I may, through you, I wanted to answer one of Mr. Nero's questions about the privacy slats. And when Tony and I met out there, we had talked about from the sprayscape area to this corner abutting these houses. Now, there's already a chain link fence behind these houses, so we thought that if we butted the fence right up against the existing fence, we would privacy slant to here, and then there wouldn't be a need to, because there's sort of a natural rough buffer through here, and there's even a rougher buffer through here. This is completely woods and scrub. You can't come up behind here unless you have a machete and you want to hack your way through to there. So this area is fairly, away from where people are going to try to walk through and approach the fence. But we did have the concern here, and that's why we talked about this area from the sprayscape over to the corner of this property here where the existing fence is. So that would hinder.
You're not
that.
suggesting doing away with this?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, we may do away with that and put up the new piece, put up the new fencing so it all matches. This is really in very rough shape, Dennis.
Yeah.
It's bent over, it's old galvanized pipe, the galvanneal has come off and it's rusting. And if we were going to put all new
fencing here now?
there's existing fencing from here to about here, right, Antonio? And it's fallen down in places, tree limbs have fallen and damaged it.
You're replacing it.
So we're going to just, since it's going to be
But you don't
new-
need the slats.
Right, you don't need the slats anywhere, probably from this point all the way to this point. So from here to here, you wouldn't need the slats. It would just be here and here. No, that's all backed by woods. And the sprayscape is completely fenced in. So there's actually a double fence. So the kids that are in the sprayscape would be inside a fence. The dog would be inside a fence.
Councilman Taylor.
Apologize, I'm not totally up to speed on this, but a couple of questions. One for Antonio. Proposed water spigots, would those be like freeze-proof hydrants?
Yeah,
Maybe-
exactly.
So we wouldn't have to blow the lines out at the end of the year?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Second question, again, I apologize, I'm not up to speed. Liability issues for the city, I'm sure that's been a major topic. Is it legal for us to say, use this facility at your own risk?
I believe it is.
So we don't get, because I know dog bites are a major, liability issue. And dog issues with dog fighting and everything else. And I think it's a great idea. My oldest son lives in Vermont, and you walk down anywhere you go in Burlington, there's dogs everywhere. And I just don't want it. I think it's great. I just don't want to see it become a liability issue for the city, to have issue after issue after issue. Your dog did this, my dog did this, somebody did this. I just want to make sure that doesn't happen in this situation.
Well, we have checked on it. We've spoken to,
Robin, yeah.
Yeah,
And
as I mentioned before.
Oh yeah, I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You can. It's like every time the city engages in an activity, you enter into a risk. There are certainly risks that you point out that are attendant with a dog park, and that's why I asked Dan. Dan came tonight because he had spoken with our insurance carrier about this. So we have insurance, but as he mentioned, certainly if we were ever to get sued, there is a deductible that the city has to pay, which is $100,000 in a liability case. So you cannot ever legislate away every risk, but the factors that I had mentioned before to Mr. Nero are the type of things from a risk management standpoint that you look at.
And we can
So
reduce our risk to a manageable point.
we try to reduce our risk. That's exactly right. That's what we try to do. We try to do all the things that the carrier mentioned to Dan that are things that we should do, but we can never diminish a possibility that something might happen like you mentioned.
I just don't want to see suit after suit after suit, nuisance type suits tying up city time.
Yeah. We can never prevent somebody from suing us. All we can do is try to do the things that are recommended at a dog park, and
I mean, this is not the first dog park in America. So
No, I think,
there's been a lot of experience, and
Someone,
there's been...
and Joe said I think there are 80 dog
There's
parks.
over 80 dog parks in Connecticut. There hasn't been one case law
Good.
incident of a suit.
That's my main concern, is that we're not exposing the city to excess liability, excess legal time.
It's no different than somebody playing soccer in a field, Don, or somebody
Or
swinging on a
walking
swing
on a
set.
sidewalk, or...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's not much different than
We
that.
post our rules and regulations and we enforce them, and therefore we have,
Right.
you know.
Mr. Kaplanis, did you
I
have something
I just
to
wanted
say?
to ask Dan, have we had many or any suits filed in the city regarding dogs and dog bites, or anywhere where we've had issues? Because right now, I mean, we have a leash law, and I know that we're constantly chasing people that have their dogs just walking alongside or running in the field where they're just standing there, not on a leash. And I mean, we ask them, if I see it, hey, put them on a leash. But I mean, have we had instances where a dog has gone and bitten someone, and they have tried to make an issue of it with the city?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
Good.
So I mean, I know we're all concerned about this, but we're trying to kind of centralize the spot here where not everyone is going to go and visit the park, but you're going to put them in an area. I mean, I don't know if you're really increasing any more liability there than you would anywhere else in the city.
You're sort of concentrating the risk into one area.
Well, I mean, you're more familiar with with that. I mean,
I know you said, Nick, that you found people multiple times in other city parks with dogs off of leashes, and that's a high liability, because we're not taking probably the due process steps to prevent that from happening. It's a hit or miss thing. You're catching it occasionally, but the time you don't catch it and somebody has a dog off a leash and it bites somebody, they could sue the city because they can say, the city didn't patrol this park properly and the dog was off a leash and it shouldn't have been. It's your responsibility.
we put no dogs allowed, and people are still in the park. So
One of the things too, I think that, and Robin can probably help me with this, but I believe most people, I know I am an insurance writer on my policy for home for my dog.
Homeowners.
My homeowner's policy, because if my dog were to do something, I'd want to have insurance for it. And I do have a rider for the dog, and most people know they're responsible for their dogs. And it's the same thing inside the park and outside the park. You're responsible for your animal.
Connecticut is a strict liability state. There is a statute that provides that you are liable. If your dog bites someone, you're the first avenue of attack as the owner. But that's not to say that they will try
Right.
to sue
You're not
someone
always-
in that situation
The
that Nick just
first person
created.
is not always the deepest pocket.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not everyone has insurance like Joe. Everyone is not responsible, and there are people out there that are not responsible. We all know that.
Well, we can't legislate that.
We try. So there's you can have a certain comfort level, but there's no absolute certainties. I guess is the best way to put it.
Good.
Councilman Chambers.
Through the chair, just to follow up on what Councilman Knapp was alluding to before, that's process. So the next step that the committee will be taking at some point, either tonight, is to approve the location. Once the location is approved, then the committee will be working on establishing the ordinance, or will that have to go back to the council to approve the location first and then establish the ordinance? Or you do it as one big committee and then it's one big package?
It was my thought that we would, I was actually scribbling my notes here, that we would move to have the section 12.3 change to accommodate the dog parks. Once that's done, this ad hoc committee reconvene for the purpose of moving forward on this specific site. Is that procedurally the way we should go, or
Because I was reading the article here that,
the cart before the horse?
it had all the rules, so I don't know
I
if
think we need
that's...
to figure out where we're going to get money.
And that'll give-
Well, I haven't gotten
yeah, I
there.
mean, that's
Yeah,
all
that
the
was
issue
my
we haven't
next-
talked about.
No harm's being done by changing this city ordinance. If the dog park never appears, the dog park never appears. So I'm thinking that we could get the city ordinance changed to accommodate the dog parks. In the meantime, we can work on all the other particulars we've been talking about, where the money's coming from, finger fences and all that stuff. So that when we do meet again, at least we'll know, okay, now we can present this to the council for approval.
Again, to follow, so the next step will be just to move forward to change the ordinance for the council to work on, public hearings, all that, while the committee reconvene for the nuts and bolts of the actual.
That was-
Currently, yeah, you do have the same.
I think the committee would still work with the
I mean,
ordinance
I wouldn't
before we...
Well, the ordinance has to come out of the
necessarily
committee.
recommend that you go forward with an ordinance change,
Right.
so if dog park will never be established and
Right.
if there's no funding for it, then I don't think you necessarily want to have it, unless you think it might happen sometime in the future. I mean, there's always the possibility that it could happen.
Just because this
in the
one
future.
fails
Right.
doesn't mean another one.
Do you have to have a
That's
public
true.
hearing?
Yes, and an
No,
ordinance
but
change.
to- On an ordinance change
Yes.
as well?
Mhm.
You
Oh, yeah,
can't-
absolutely.
Okay, so you can't do both and say, we're recommending along with the ordinance that Highland Avenue Park is the site, proposed site for this dog park, so that you get the neighborhood involved on that part of the public hearing as well. Or does it have to be in a separate,
I mean, we
separate
could
thing?
look at that, we could draft it, I mean, we have to look at that, it's gonna take a little while to draft that. We could, perhaps one way to do it, to structure it, is to allow dog parks and, well, you'd be hampering yourself though if you just put Highland Avenue in, because then every time you expanded it to another area, you'd have to go back and amend the ordinance.
Right.
I don't think that would be a very efficient way to do it, I don't think that would be very efficient.
I think you need to
Just in
divorce
general,
the two.
yeah, I do too.
So I just want to keep following up, because I know the article here had a whole bunch of rules. So would the ordinance incorporate the rules of the park itself, the operation, the hours, the noise, and all that itself? Or would that be the Parks Department who would regulate that?
You know,
It's always a
I'm not
question
sure
of how
that's
far you want to get into
what I'm saying.
operations.
that we'd have to
Yeah,
work out,
that's-
I think, when we
Through
start
the committee,
drafting.
really.
It's possible, Ben, but I don't conceive of how it's gonna actually look right now without looking a little bit more into it. I have seen a sample ordinance, I have some that does have rules in it, but we would have to consider if that's, I haven't, I don't know if that's the way we wanna go. I think sometimes general is better, but we will look at that as we draft it, and look at that aspect.
And I'm just thinking, just to myself now, would the rules come from the police department? Since they're going to be the enforcer of the rules, would it come by order of the Danbury Police Department? So that-
Parks, I don't know.
I would call it the Parks Department. I mean, they could work together or pinch with the
Okay.
canine control officer and see if there are any specific recommendations. I think those details will work themselves out as we go through the process.
I'm kind of thinking for a second, because I haven't really had a chance to vet my questions yet. Well, I'm just thinking that the next meeting should also include, like, what the rules should be in conjunction with everybody. We really need that written down in stone, what we need on that sign, and what exactly we need posted to be as covered as possible. And then I think we also need to look into who our community partners could be. Whether we could get DAWs involved or get donations for the bags or, so I think that's another thing we need to kind of look into for the next meeting.
That's the easy part, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I think you could get lost in the little details that we need to also be addressing, and that could build up. So I think it's important that we kind of get everything all tied up as we're moving forward. Councilman Taylor.
Again, I apologize for maybe not being up to speed on this, but I'm just, looking at this article that came from Mr. Shimizi, and we're looking at, vaccinations, leash, no food, no smoking, no aggressive dogs, no barking, no dogs in season, no dogs under 4 months, no running by children, no children under 5 age, clean up of pest waste. Will there be somebody there enforcing this?
On a regular basis.
Well, not constantly, but
I mean, you can make every
warden-
single rule in the world that
Right.
you want.
The dog warden will be stopping by. Joe did speak to the chief of police.
Okay, again, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's okay.
And now, this is like any other park in the city. There's not always supervision.
Right.
The people who come to these parks, they're self-supervised. If there's an issue, the police can be called, and the police will act on the issue. But the rules, I think, are more being posted as our due diligence to say, look,
Right.
these are rules.
We-
If you didn't follow these,
It's your
it's
responsibility.
your responsibility.
That's fine. That's, I have no problem, that's fine. Thank you.
You can't possibly put
No,
everything
a person
down.
in every
that-
part.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, or even the rules. I mean, I can tell you for spray parts. I mean, we have a list of things, you know, that you're not supposed to do. You know, you can't bring this or that in. They may say you can't bring your bike in, and somebody comes in with one of those scooters. Well, it doesn't say anything about a scooter on it. Well, it's like, yeah, you're right, but you can't bring it in.
Yeah.
I mean, common sense does have to apply once in a while, but you're not going to cover everything.
If we could legislate common
You'd
sense
have
and
a
responsibility,
board
we
of rules that is a mile long.
Yeah.
Mr. Nero, did you have a
I was just
question?
going to write it down. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm trying to understand, given that everything falls into place with amending the ordinance, what would be the next, what's the progression for the next things that have to drop? So it'd be amending the ordinance and then it goes to the does the council, do we move this to the council to amend the ordinance and then it goes to a public hearing and then it goes to committee of the whole? I don't understand what the next steps are.
Yes.
Did someone just go through that for me?
You just did.
I did?
You did. Right on the money. 2 this week. Okay. Yesterday and today. Okay. Buy a lottery ticket on your way home.
Okay, we got to get through this because
Okay.
I did want to hold up Jack's meeting, but I won't. Okay, I do understand and I'm actually a little confused. I understand about the ordinance and what that process is, but now when the committee meets again, do they meet to look at the amended ordinance and work on all the other things also? Like, how do we progress with the two things?
The question is, does the committee feel that you still need to want to cover some of these other items that you had mentioned,
Right.
Madam Chairman, such as the rules? Does the committee feel that when it goes back to the council, it wants to go back to some rules? If you feel that that's the case, then you could convene again and you could then discuss rules. If you feel that that's the level of detail that you want to get into, we have information we can help you with. We have rules from many towns. And we could help you with that. If you want to report, when you ask the council, if you want to report that to the community partners, then I suggest you go out and gather that information. Come back and convene. If you feel that you want to have all these things lined up before you go back to the council, then you can go back to the council with a comprehensive motion, we recommend that.
Including the
dog park be
ordinance.
approved. Yeah, including the ordinance. We recommend that the recommendation of this committee is that the dog park be approved. These are the following rules to be recommended. This is what we have as far as partnering with community members, and we also recommend that you move forward to adopt an ordinance change. And you can go back with it at that time as well, and then the whole council would vote on it. So I would say it depends on the level of detail you want to have involved in. But if you'd like to look into, and I think that's your inclination to look into more about the rules, then I would suggest you review maybe one more time through the rules. In the meantime, we can look at starting to put together an ordinance for the service.
Okay.
I agree. I think that the next meeting we should talk about rules. I think that there could be possibly, if it's needed, a proposed ordinance change draft presented to the committee. I think, and then financing. I think those are the 3 big keys. And I think if those 3 meet, can be everybody's acceptance, then I think this parcel probably will as well, to make a full recommendation to the council that we proceed with the dog park on this parcel in Highland Avenue. We will get the money. As the money is acquired, this can happen, and then take it to the council that way. So,
That's what I was. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, Councilman Mack?
I'm going to leave it here, I didn't write it down, but I move that we reconvene at a later date with the specific intent of reviewing the ordinance change, have a draft to review the ordinance change, review the finance of the project, and review the rules. Anything else you want to add into that?
there's some, I have some in there. Maybe some of this packet I was thinking, and I'll go get them from the 3 parts, and then we can.
I mean, this is like just pull down.
Right.
Do that for a while.
other
For Richfield, isn't it?
operational considerations.